Okay, so I've got some questions here from the audience. And some are directed at Ezra, some are directed at Ben, some are directed at both. The first question here is for Ben, and it's, is electricity economically competitive enough in the short term to dissuade the world's energy consumers from oil products? Now there's another part of the question. What do you think is necessary to make the switch from dirty energy to clean energy, I guess, from an infrastructure perspective?
And I've got about 2 minutes to change the world economy, do I? You're highlighting, whoever asked this question, you're highlighting the obvious problem, which is the economics that is where we're at right now. As Ezra, I think, pointed out quite well, there's a lot of greedy people on Howe Street, and if the economy dictated change happening, it would have happened already. Now, that being said, the point that I brought up, which was that basically the government can play a role in both investing in infrastructure and regulating industry. The industries that we've got right now, I think we need to be looking at oil in the future the same way that we looked at any other harmful toxin. We phased out things that caused harm. DDT was harmful, we phased it out. We can do that sort of thing, but it takes actually regulating it. Right now in the United States, the Environmental Protection Agency is talking about regulating CO2. So we need to be not just looking at the dollars and cents economics of it. I mean, you can go down that road of pricing carbon and the market-based solutions, but as Ezra pointed out, also, once again, we've tried that to a certain extent with the carbon exchange, and it's tough. In Europe, they basically give away carbon credits. And then there's all these issues about how the offsets don't work, potentially. Because you're offsetting one bad with another bad some of the times, or people cheat, or so at the end of the day, all those market mechanisms and all the rest of that stuff is really just about trying to shut down the things that are problematic. And we know what those things are. It's coal-fired power plants, it's gasoline in our cars. We need to be getting aggressively, moving in the right direction. We need to be investing in the solutions today. And that's something that we can do very easily. A lot of the technology already exists, we just haven't gotten to the economies of scale to bring the price down. And it's hard to make this argument, well, oil is more economically feasible because oil's been subsidized for decades, continues to be right now. So we need to end those subsidies and shift them to the solutions. It's actually quite simple and would happen quite quickly, I believe, if we actually had the political will.
Okay. This question's for Ezra. If you're such an advocate for human rights, as you claim to be, why aren't you lobbying the Canadian government to create better corporate accountability with mining companies in Latin America or other crucial human rights issues?
I think that question proves my point. Because you talked about bad behavior of mining companies in other countries, right? That's my whole point. That's my whole point. Is that I can. Would you like me to name terrible behavior by oil companies? Let me start listing terrible behavior by oil companies for you. PetroChina, the world's largest oil company measured by market cap, had an explosion in the city of Jilin. People dead, huge toxic slick, cities without water for days. I'm trying to remember the exact statistic. I think they were fined 120 grand, which was like 3 seconds profit. Terrible behavior. I don't know all the statistics about Shell in Nigeria, but I think it's bad. There are bad behaved companies all over the world.
Would you join me in calling for a boycott of Shell, Ezra?
But boycott whoever you want. I don't care. I mean, I'm not.
But will you join me in doing it?
I don't think so, because the Shell that I buy my gas from, I think, I'd have to check, its oil comes from an ethical source in the oil sands. And I think that question proves my point, is there are badly behaved companies all around the world because those other countries let them get away with it. Now, I don't know what specifics of that person's referring to, but there are companies in northern Alberta that behave poorly in other countries, but aren't allowed to behave poorly in Canada. For example, in Nigeria, Shell flares its gas, just flares that natural gas. $2 billion worth a year, that's if you care about money, but enough CO2 to put it over the top. They're not allowed to do that in Alberta. This book, Ben, if you think that this book is a defense of an oil company, and you sort of implied that in your poem, you're wrong. I don't care about this company or that company. I have no oil sands stock. I wasn't paid by an oil company to do this or that. This book is a defense of our country and our country's laws and our country's regulations.
Okay, the next question's for Ben. If the oil sands are to be phased out, then what? What will replace this massive source of employment and tax revenue for the Alberta government?
Who wrote this question? Did Ezra write that? I could have swore we'd had that conversation for the whole last hour. Okay, so the question's specifically about jobs in Alberta.
Jobs and tax revenue for the Alberta government.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one, to be honest. The jobs in Alberta might not be as many jobs. It's what happens anytime a major industrial project shuts down. But that doesn't mean that we won't have other jobs elsewhere. In fact, I think really the energy solution for the future is more locally supplied energy. And as Ezra points out, many of the people in Alberta right now are actually from elsewhere. There's people coming to Alberta from all over Canada. And I think the ideal would be that we actually get to a place where people don't have to leave home to work and have a job. I think ultimately, it'd be ideal if we had investment in energy technology all over Canada so that people could be working, on the East Coast, on a wind turbine factory, or, working, in the central district of Canada in any variety of different technology advancements, or in Ontario in working on electric buses and electric cars where we retool the automobile industry. You can laugh if you want, but the truth of the matter is that that's the change that's necessary. You can have a world that's based on science, or you can have a world that's based on economics. And right now, Ezra's picking the world that's based on economics. And quite frankly, it's unsustainable and will end up costing more in the end. So, it's true. I mean, jobs go away when industry disappears. I'm not going to deny that. There's a lot of towns all over British Columbia who've seen the impact of the pine beetle epidemic. And, and something needs to be done. It takes investment. It takes involvement. Sometimes it actually takes the government getting involved in things, as much as Ezra would like to believe that that's not the case.